Welcome today, brethren, to another post that we're going to do. It is concerning Daniel 12:1. At that time Michael shall stand up, the great prince who stands watch over the sons of your people, and there shall be a time of trouble such as never was since there was a nation, even to that time. And at that time your people shall be delivered, every one who is found written in the book. Again, that's Daniel 12:1. Now, we're going to bring this up today because this study is a very interesting study. And, like many of the topics and subjects of the Present Truth message, there is some confusion. Some of the brethren are a little bit confused about this deliverance. And so we hit the books, as they say. We did some hardcore studying, and we assimilated what we see clearly from the message. And we hope you'll be blessed because you can take this message, spread it to the people, the Present Truth believers, ultimately to Mother if she gets more advanced in the studies. And this will be very helpful for you, brethren. So praise the Lord. We always request that the brethren kneel and pray, claim the promise of John 16:13, and he shall guide us into all truth. Let's begin. All right, so our first question comes, does 144,000 get delivered from the Sunday law or something else? Now, we bring that question up because there are some brethren, and, many of them are well-meaning. They just don't understand the complexities of this subject, but they think that every time it speaks of deliverance in the TGs and tracts and so forth, they're talking about deliverance of the 144,000 by the Sunday law. The understanding is that Michael stands up, he's delivering 144,000 first from the Sunday law, and then later, as he stands up, he delivers the great multitude from the Sunday law. But let's look at this in an in-depth way, and you're going to get real good clarity, I believe. All right, so we're looking at the references that lead one to think that the 144,000 are going to be delivered from the persecution of the Sunday law. So let's look at the first one. Chapter 12 takes us even further back in time than chapter 11, way beyond the birth of Christ. Then forward to the time the earth opens her mouth and swallows up the flood, and to the time of the remnant. The remnant are those who are left after the others are swallowed up by the flood, by the earth. They, as a people, keep the commandments of God and have the testimony of Jesus Christ. They are persecuted by the dragon immediately after the earth swallows up the flood. Okay, we highlighted that part. Now notice that they are persecuted by the dragon. So we're going to look at that because some people will say, you see there that the 144,000 are persecuted by the Sunday law. But let's look further. As yet we know not of a people in all the world of whom inspiration can say that they as a people, all of them, actually keep the commandments of God. The only such group of people that could possibly be found in time are the 144,000. Again, that's 2TG number 14, page 17. Then we have the other reference. There's actually three references that predominantly lead one to think about this persecution against 144,000 as the Sunday law. And let's look at number 2. As soon as the separation is finished and Satan has lost out with his deceptive scheme, the church finds herself in a great conflict with the enemy, Revelation 12:17. And the dragon was wroth with the woman and went to make war with the remnant of her seed, those who are left, which keep the commandments of God and have the testimony of Jesus Christ. The war against the woman is the blue law. And that's 1 Shepherd's Rod, page 152. And we make a note, the term war herein is used as meaning persecuted by the Sunday law. So let's keep that in mind when we see the word war. Now, let's look at this second reference here. You notice that this was made in 1930. And you notice that it says that those who are left, well, who are left? It's 144,000 after the dragon swallows the flood, right? So then he says that the war is going to be against those who left, which is going to be the Sunday law. So we see clearly that one could, indeed, at this time, the message was leading us to that understanding. but let's look further. All right. Now, we're going to go to 2TG number 14, page 17, 18. This is a little bit more of the first quote we gave you. And we read the first part, and then we're going to go down to the second paragraph. When in time does chapter 12 begin? Well, it begins with the day the woman mentioned therein conceived the man-child. Specifically speaking, her conception of the child points back to the time inspiration promised to send the Redeemer to the church. Chapter 13 begins with the dissolution of the Roman Empire and with the kings who arose from it, who then took their crowns as symbolized by the crowned horns of the leopard-like beast. This chapter ends with the two-horned beast decree, the decree to kill all who dare not receive the mark of the beast. Thus will the dragon be wroth with the woman, and thus will he persecute the woman. 2TG number 14, page 17 to 18. So, brethren, now let's look at this. Let's look at these three. We're going to go into a little bit more explanation about this particular reference as we go further. But anyway, wanted to give you those three main references that can lead one to believe that the 144,000 are going to be persecuted by the Sunday law. But as we well know, we have to look at all the references, put all the pieces together, and then we'll have a good vision. All right, now these are more references that lend one to think about the 144,000 being persecuted by the Sunday law. At that time, Michael shall stand up, the great prince, which standeth for the children of thy people, and there shall be a time of trouble, such as never was since there was a nation, even to that same time. And at that time thy people shall be delivered, every one that shall be found written in the book. At that time, that is, at the time the king of the north comes to his end, and none shall help him, shall Michael stand. And at that same time there shall be a trouble such as never was even to that very time. Only God's people who have their names written in the book will be delivered, none other. 2TG number 10, verse 3. And then we have Jezreel letter number 1, page 12, paragraph 2. Only by giving ear to what inspiration says and shunning all voices contrary to its voice can any of us survive the judgment and secure a place in the soon coming kingdom of God. Prove all things, hold fast that which is good. 1 Thessalonians 5:21 is heaven's admonition to all. Only thus can we make sure that God requires us to know and do, so that he will not have to spew us out of his mouth, Revelation 3:16, but rather that our names be found written in the book, and we be delivered from the swift coming time of trouble, such as never was, Daniel 12:1. Now we make a note. When, in the top reference there, when does the king of the north come to his end? Well, we know that from the message. It's at Ezekiel 9, which is the Zechariah 14 war. For he is no longer ruling the Holy Land. And that's found in tract 12, page 86 to 87. In other words, the identity of the king of the north is he who rules the Holy Land. That's what it says in tract 12, page 86, 87. So obviously, if he's no longer ruling the Holy Land, which we know is the case in Zechariah 14 war, the Eastern Bloc defeats the Western Bloc, then we must look at this and say, so can the above references be saying at or right after Ezekiel 9, the 144,000 are persecuted by the Sunday law? And the harvest chart will help answer it. So we'll look at further in the harvest chart. But, you know, the main point here is that when you look at 2TG 7, page 10, you see that people will be delivered. Now, when you understand that, you know that the deliverance is at the time that the king of the north comes to his end. Well, that can't be the Sunday law, because you know that is in effect saying that the Sunday law happens almost immediately after Ezekiel 9. And we're going to go into the harvest chart and explain that to you. So that right there, that reference right there, can only be a deliverance of some other type. It can't be a deliverance by the Sunday law. It must be something else. And we'll look at it further. Now, inspiration answers the question. Now, these are very clear quotes, brethren, and we love how inspiration makes things so clear you can't misconstrue it, right? So let's look at this. And the dragon was wroth with the woman and went to make war with the remnant of her seed, which keep the commandments of God and have the testimony of Jesus Christ. Revelation 12:17. The term remnant discloses that her seed is divided into two parts. One is taken, the other is left. Nehemiah, for example, explains, the remnant that are left in captivity there in the province are in great affliction and reproach. Nehemiah 1:3. A remnant always represents one part of the whole, either large or small. And notice that the dragon wars not against a remnant of the flood, but against the remnant of her seed. Christ being the woman's only child, her seed, are therefore the Christians and those who are born into the church through the Spirit of Christ. Accordingly, the act of taking the first fruits to Mount Zion, Revelation 14:1, brings about a condition which makes a remnant of those who are still left among the Gentiles. In this instance, therefore, they, the second fruits, are the remnant. Let it be remembered that it is after the earth swallows the flood that the dragon is to be wroth with the woman and to make war with the remnant of her seed, not with her personally. Okay, remember that now. Not with her personally. Who's her? It's the 144,000, which keep the commandments of God and have the testimony of Jesus Christ. Revelation 12:16 and 17. Clearly then, there's no escaping the conclusion that the doing away with Satan's flood is doubtless the purifying of the church and the destroying of those who have joined the church through the aid of the serpent. This purifying is the very thing that enables the church as a body to keep the commandments of God and also to have the testimony of Jesus Christ, the living spirit of prophecy. Revelation 19:10, in her midst. This is her only hope, her only strength, her only deliverance. In this, inspiration now puts new life into the words. Awake, awake, put on thy strength, O Zion. Put on thy beautiful garments, O Jerusalem, the holy city. For henceforth there shall no more come unto thee the uncircumcised and the unclean. Isaiah 52:1. Again, this beautiful reference is found in track 15, page 88 and 89. So we see very clearly, as you notice in the highlight part, that inspiration is telling us that the dragon will not war with 144,000, not with her personally. Let's go on to more references. All right. And the dragon was wroth with the woman and went to make war with the remnant of her seed, which keep the commandments of God and have the testimony of Jesus Christ. Revelation 12:17. The term remnant discloses that her seed is divided into two parts. Okay, I believe we've already read that, brethren, so let's go on further. Okay, so yeah, again, in the highlight area, notice that the dragon wars not against a remnant of the flood, which is the 144,000, but against the remnant of her seed. All right, brethren, so this seed is the great multitude. Now, let's get to this last section here of track 15, page 88-89. The church purification, therefore, will not bring the millennial time of peace, indeed not, but it will bring the end of the wicked in the church. And with it, Satan's greatest wrath against the remnant, against those who, while still among the Gentiles, dare thereafter to take their stand on the Lord's side. They shall, nevertheless, be delivered if they, as it were, risk their lives, if they take their stand on the Lord's side and thereby put their names in the book. Daniel 12:1. The dragon cannot war with the woman, the church that is made up of who? The first fruits, brethren. So you see how clear this is. This is why we call these the clear, plain statements. Because at that time, she's what? She is with the Lamb on Mount Zion, Revelation 14:1, out of the dragon's reach. All right? So this is beautiful because, like I said, all of these pieces come together. And we didn't bring it in this study, but we have the 2 or 3 references that says, once the Michael's feet stands on Mount Olives, and that's the time of the war, just ending the war. The saints will know that it's time for them to get going, get on the road, get traveling back to the kingdom, because it says they will flee as if fleeing from an earthquake. That's how fast they will flee. So in other words, there's not going to be dallying around at the time of at the time that Assyria is crushed. Zechariah 14 and Ezekiel 9. At that time, after these things happen, the 144,000 will know that their job is to get back to the kingdom, set up the kingdom, and get ready to proclaim the loud cry. And so this is beautiful. The dragon will not, after Ezekiel 9, dare war with the first fruits. The fact that there is a remnant, that which is left, of the seed of the woman, shows that her seed is divided into two parts, and that consequently the symbolism represents three groups of people. One, the woman. Two, the first part of her seed, those who in this instance are not the remnant. And the second part of her seed, those who are the remnant. In light of this symbolical representation, the woman herself is seen to symbolize the mother part of the church, God's appointed and spirit-filled ministers who bring in the born-again, John 3:3 converts. The first part of her seed must accordingly be the first fruits, 144,000, who, separated from sinners that were among them, are taken to Mount Zion, there to stand with the Lamb. Let's stop here again. Again, we get confirmation. Once the first fruits are separated, there's no dallying around in the wilderness. All right? I just want to make that clear, that you don't find in the message where they're going to dally around for months, maybe even a year or so in the wilderness before they get to the kingdom. No, they are taken after Ezekiel 9 to the kingdom. So let's remember that. Hence, the remnant of her seed are in this instance those who are yet in the world when Babylon rides the beast, Revelation 17. Thus they are the second and last fruits which are to be taken to the purified church, the kingdom, where there is neither sin nor fear of Babylon's plagues falling upon them, Revelation 18:4. And now, since in her progression of time the woman represents each successive ministry, therefore, at the time that the dragon is wrought with her, she necessarily must represent the last ordained ministry, the 144,000, those who bring in all the brethren from all the nations to God's holy mountain, Jerusalem, Isaiah 66:20. With this light shining on the subject, the truth is clearly seen that after the earth swallows the flood, after the angels separate the wicked, the tares, the bad fish, from the righteous, the wheat, the good fish, in the church, and take the righteous to Mount Zion, the barn, the vessels, Matthew 13:30 and 48, the dragon will then be angry with the woman, the servants of God, and as a result will war against the remnant, the second fruits, those who are then to be called out of Babylon, Revelation 18:4. This important reference is Answer Book, Volume 2, page 15 to 16. So, brethren, we see in the highlight area that the dragon will be upset with 144,000. Yes, there's no doubt about it. He's going to be extremely upset with them, but he can't war with them. As a result, he will war with the remnant, the second fruits, and that is the ones out in Babylon, brethren. So we start to get really good clarity from the clear statements. Now, we looked at the first part of the statements that were kind of clear, but not so. But these are very, very clear, brethren. So we're going to start to do some harmonization, and you're going to see how this beautifully fits together. All right, so let's look at the next one, which is track 12, page 44 to 45. And the earth helped the woman, and the earth opened her mouth and swallowed up the flood, which a dragon cast out of his mouth, Revelation 12:16. Or, literally stated, the unconverted who are now in the midst of the church are to be slain and buried. The converted are then to be taken into the kingdom. But once again, brethren, we see after this swallowing of the flood, They are to go to the kingdom. Then will the dragon be wroth with the woman, and make war with the remnant of her seed, which keep the commandments of God and have the testimony of Jesus Christ. Revelation 12:17. Stirred to fury over her purification, the dragon will make war with the remnant of her seed. Against her personally, though, he will not war, because her communicates, the 144,000 first fruits, Revelation 7:3-8, 14:4, those who go first into the kingdom stand with the Lamb, the King, on Mount Zion, his palace grounds. So we highlighted that area again, brethren, because we're starting to see a preponderance of evidence that the dragon will not war with the 144,000. I hope this is very clear to you now, that he will indeed war with the great multitude. Thus, being the rulers of the tribe, they are symbolized by the crowned woman, and being in their own land, they are protected from the dragon, who consequently persecutes only the remnant, those who are left behind, who are still in Babylon, who are finally called out of her, Revelation 18:4. For full particulars on Revelation 12, read Shepherd's Rod, Volume 2, page 64 to 82. The first fruits of the kingdom come as a result of the shaking, the separation in the church, as is demonstrated by the parables of the net and the field. The good fish are removed from the net, the church, and put into vessels, the kingdom, Matthew 13:48. And the wheat is taken from among the tares and put into the barn, the kingdom, Matthew 13:30. As bad fish they are cast away, as tares they are burned. For a detailed study of the harvest, read Tract 3, the judgment and the harvest. The second fruits, however, those who are still in Babylon after the purification, are taken from among the bad, Revelation 18:4, rather than the bad from among the good, Matthew 13:49. You see the difference there, brethren, that the purifications happen in two different ways. The 144,000 are taken away from the bad. But in the other instance, the great multitude are, no, I'm sorry, baby. Sorry, brethren. I meant to say the other way. The 144,000 are taken, the bad are taken away from them. And then the great multitude, they are taken away from the bad. So we see purification accomplished in two different ways. So that's beautiful. That shows the difference between the deliverance and the purification. All right, the dragon's warring against them is occasioned by their having the testimony of Jesus, the spirit of prophecy, Revelation 19:10, by becoming commandment keepers instead of worshipers of the beast and his image. The dragon's aim is to keep them from coming out of Babylon and thus from going into the rapidly growing kingdom. Tract 12, page 44 to 45. So these are very, very clear references, brethren, and I hope this is being a very enlightening information to you so that you can make a clear understanding of this subject. All right, now we're going to get into harmonization. We've got to be able to harmonize, and we know that from 3 Answer, page 41. There's actually many other references, but we find this one very applicable for this study. Let us remember always to observe the inviolable rule that an interpretation of one inspired statement must harmonize with all other related statements. So we're going to have to make sure we harmonize. How do we harmonize? They are persecuted by the dragon immediately after the earth swallows up the flood, 2 TG number 14, page 17, and the war against the woman is the blue law, 1 Shepherd's Rod, page 152. All right, so how do we harmonize those with the quotes that say the dragon will not war with the 144,000? Obviously, we've got to, because if we don't, then we're left with a message that is contradictory, right? And God forbid, the Elijah message that he sent through the prophet is for our benefit, not for our confusion, right? So let's just rightly divide the word truth, and we will arrive at the truth. All right, key point. In harmonization, it is helpful to have a starting point, and that should be with the plain, clear statements. So we begin with those. for these cannot be misconstrued as much as the non-clear or possible open viewpoint statements. So this is a very good principle when we start to harmonize. So let's look at the first four, I believe it's four plain clear statements. And that's number one. After Ezekiel 9, the dragon will then be angry with the woman, servants of God, and a result will war against the remnant, the second fruits, those who are then to be called out of Babylon, Revelation 18:4. And this is found in Answer Book, Volume 2, page 15 to 16. The second one, stirred to fury over her purification. The dragon will make war with the remnant of her seed. Against her personally, though, he will not war, because her communicants, 144,000, first fruits, Revelation 7:3-8 and 4:4, those who go first into the kingdom stand with the Lamb, the King, on Mount Zion, Revelation 14:1, his palace grounds. All right, number 3. The dragon cannot war with the woman, the church that is made up of the first fruits, because at that time she is with the Lamb on Mount Zion, Revelation 14:1, out of the dragon's reach. Track 15, page 89. And the last one, number 4, and notice that the dragon wars not against the remnant of the flood, but against the remnant of her seed. The dragon cannot war with the woman, the church that is made up of the first fruits, because at that time she is with the Lamb on Mount Zion, Revelation 14:1, and out of the dragon's reach. So, brethren, this is where we start. We start with these 4 very clear statements, and you cannot misconstrue them when you concentrate on clearly what they say. All right, with the plain statements, then, what can it mean to be persecuted by the dragon immediately after the earth swallows up the flood? In order not to have a contradiction, we must harmonize it to say that the persecution will happen after Ezekiel 9, but it will not be the Sunday law. It must be some other type of persecution. The following statement supports this. So, brethren, we see that, yes, inspiration is not incorrect by saying they will be persecuted, but it's not going to be the Sunday law. All right? It's not going to be the Sunday law. It's going to be some other type of persecution. Now, how do we know this? Well, we go to 2 Symbolic Code number 1, page 9. Is Satan working for God's or his church's interest, or against? If against, he will never do one thing to purify the church or to fulfill prophecy. The only thing that will compel him to pass blue Sunday laws and go to make war with the remnant of her seed, with those that are left, Revelation 12:17, is the purity of the church when God, by the slaughter weapons of Ezekiel 9, takes away the tares which receive not the mark. And even then, Satan will not enact blue Sunday laws until after he has exhausted every other weapon against the church. Therefore, as long as the church remains in her present Laodicean condition, there will be no blue laws or war against her, but only a bluff, but a bluff only to make her members believe that they are free from his snares, and he is still trying to cause them to fall. 2 Symbolic Code number 1, page 9. So, brethren, we see here that, yes, the persecution will come immediately. Okay, that means very soon, very quickly after Ezekiel 9. But it must be some other type of persecution, because it says that he's going to use the Sunday law as his last weapon. And we'll go into the harvest chart to make it more clear here, brethren. But this is beautiful because, like I said, you start putting all these pieces together, and you notice that they start to fit perfectly once you know the different references, once you can assimilate, once you can rightly divide the word of truth. It all comes together. And so, yes, there's going to be some persecution to the 144,000 right after Ezekiel 9. Now, what could that be? Well, the only thing from our studies is that we know on the way, remember they're going to quickly begin their travel back to the kingdom. We know on their way that Jacob's time of trouble will occur. Now, this is going to be a mental anguish, yes, but there's also going to be a threat. So some type of persecution is going to come to 144,000. And so this makes sense because that would be the immediate persecution after the flood, would be the Jacob's time of trouble occurring very soon as they go into the proceed into the kingdom, traveling. So, like I said, beautiful how these pieces fit together. All right, what about this one? As soon as the separation is finished and Satan has lost out with his deceptive scheme, the church finds herself in a great conflict with the enemy, Revelation 12:17. And the dragon was wroth with the woman, and went to make war with the remnant of her seed, those who are left, which keep the commandments of God and have the testimony of Jesus Christ. The war against the woman is the blue law, one shepherd rod, page 152. So how do we explain this? Well, it's very simple. First, this reference was made in 1930, before the kingdom light had been given to Brother Hodoff. In so keeping with the time then present, understanding, so in other words, he was keeping with the understanding of the time then present, one answer, page 49, the idea of persecution both to 144,000 and the great multitude as one group. Okay, so that's what he was going with. The understanding at that time that there would not be any kingdom to go to, because he didn't have that light, but that after Ezekiel 9, both 144,000 and the great multitude as one group would suffer from the Sunday law persecution. There were certain aspects of end-time events the prophet would declare over time as scroll unrolled and the prophetic understandings became clearer. In 1937, the kingdom light came, and end-time events became much more clearer. Second, this same principle was shown by John the Baptist. Now remember that this is a principle in 1 Answer 49 that's very powerful, brethren. We suggest you always read that and comprehend that. He expressed his views that Jesus would come as the conquering king because that was the common understanding among the people of God at that time. Again, you can find that in Desire of Ages, page 214 to 220. So we see a beautiful understanding here that, yes, this was the understanding at that time, 1930, but the prophet only could see limited light, right? And he could not see further than what the scroll had unrolled at the time, just like John the Baptist. John the Baptist did not see that scroll, but he could only see it to the point where he was living. And so this is a beautiful rule to remember. 1 Answer 49. All right, so we must know the remnant in regards to the Sunday law. That's a very good key also. Now we're going to read, again, 2TG number 14, page 17 to 18. Thus it is that chapter 12 ends its story with the remnant, the servants of God, the first fruits, 144,000. They become the remnant after the hypocrites among them are swallowed up by the earth, so to speak. This remnant will, as a people, be keeping the commandments of God, and without guile in their mouths, they, being the first fruits. Inspiration thus points out that there is to be a second fruit, for without a second there can be no first. And so we see that chapter 12 brings us to the time the church is purified, the time she as a church truly keeps the commandments of God. When in time does chapter 12 begin? Well, it begins with the day the woman mentioned therein conceived the man-child. Specifically speaking, her conception of the child points back to the time inspiration promised to send the Redeemer to the church. Chapter 13 begins with the dissolution of the Roman Empire and with the kings who arose from it, who then took their crowns, as symbolized by the crowned horns of the leopard-like beast. This chapter ends with the two-horned beast decree, the decree to kill all who dare not receive the mark of the beast. Thus will the dragon be wroth with the woman, and thus he will persecute the remnant. 2TG number 14, page 17 to 18. All right, we'll make a note. Chapter 12 discusses the remnant as well as chapter 13. But are they the same remnant? So yeah, you could read this reference. And if you're not careful, you could attempt to put everything in context by saying, well, at the top first two paragraphs, we see that 144,000 are the remnant. And then you go down to the next paragraph and you see the dragon will be wroth with the remnant. Well, then it must be 144,000. But brethren, you've got to go deeper. We have to understand the message as a whole. So that would be a mistake to claim that chapter 12, when it's talking about the remnant and the persecution upon the remnant, that is one and the same remnant. It's not so, and we'll get into that. All right, so we have the answer. And the dragon was wroth with the woman and went to make war with the remnant of her seed, which keep the commandments of God and have the testimony of Jesus Christ. Revelation 12:17. The term remnant discloses that her seed is divided into two parts. The one is taken, the other left. Nehemiah, for example, explains the remnant that are left of the captivity therein, the province, are in great affliction and reproach. Nehemiah 1:3. The remnant always represents one part of the whole, either large or small. And notice that the dragon wars not against the remnant of the flood, but against the remnant of her seed. Christ being the woman's only child, her seed are therefore the Christians, those who are born in the church through the Spirit of Christ. Accordingly, the act of taking the first fruits to Mount Zion, Revelation 14:1, brings about a condition which makes a remnant of those who are still left among the Gentiles. In this instance, what instance, brethren? In this instance where they're persecuted and the dragon makes war with the Sunday law against God's people. In this instance, okay, therefore they are the second fruits, are the remnant. This is beautiful, brethren. So the key point is, after the flood is swallowed, Ezekiel 9, the dragon does not war with the remnant, 144,000, but with the remnant left among the Gentiles. That's the great multitude. So we have to understand the term remnant when we're speaking of the Sunday law, because there's two different applications here. All right? And like I said, this explains it all and it harmonizes it all. Praise the Lord. Now let's go to the chart. Now the chart's going to be very informative, as it always is. You got the Ezekiel 9 here, and this is the first deliverance, brethren. Remember, this is where the saints are delivered, and the 144,000 are delivered from the terrors, the wicked in the church. That's when they're found written in the book, okay? And now, you notice that there's a period of time. You got the Church Federation time, and then down here, the 144,000 are delivered. The great multitude are to be delivered as in the United States, in the two-horned beast domain, are to be delivered as the Sunday law comes into being in the two-horned beast domain. So this is the first deliverance. And then as it proceeds, you see that out in the world, the Sunday law is now occurring, and that is when the deliverance occurs in the world for the great multitude. So in this period right here is the deliverance of the great multitude. Whereas in this period right here, Ezekiel 9, Zechariah 14, is the deliverance of the 144,000. All right, let's look at the summary. There shall be two deliverances while Michael is standing up. One to the 144,000, which shall be from the wicked in the church, Ezekiel 9, and then later for the great multitude from the Sunday law and their enforcers. Michael standing up will deliver all those names found written in the book. The first deliverance begins with the judgment for the living in the house of God, 1 Peter 4:17, and occurs at one time, Ezekiel 9. But the deliverance of the great multitude shall occur over a period of time during the loud cry. Let's go back real quick to that chart. So we see that this period is going to take some time, where I'm circling here. Going to take some time, and as this develops in this period, the great multitude are delivered. All right, brethren. So we hope that this has been very clear to you. it's so beautiful when you put all the pieces together, rightly dividing the word of truth. So until next time, may the Lord continue to guide you into all truth. Amen.